All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Musings of a Madman. I am your host, Damien Kapinga. But for this case, you can call me the last operator of the universe. Today, I want to talk about politics. Yay, the good stuff. In my country, Namibia, last year, 2019, we had the presidential elections. And in that time, at the beginning of the year, we had someone known as Pandleni Itula, Dr. Itula, and he was running as an independent candidate. This was the first time it ever happened in my country. And to tell you the truth, the revolutionary in me, all of us, the young people and whatnot, people I talked to, he was just he was a hot topic. He was inflammatory, and just listening to him made you think, wow, for people like me, people who want to change, who want a better world and all that, listening to Itula talk, Dr. Itula talk, made us feel like something could be changed, something could be improved, and that the world could be better. And we listened to this guy talk, and we realized SWAPO was basically dragging their feet with their work. I mean, I heard Itula talk, and I felt like the landscape was going to change. Even when we got to the elections, before we even got to the elections, people were saying, no, he won't make it because he doesn't have a party. He won't do anything. He won't achieve anything. He'll probably get no votes. But your boy cleaned out, okay? He was very vocal. He was actually campaigning, making SWAPO actually try and campaign as well. What I didn't like about the campaign in the first place was that he wanted to run as independent candidate. That was fine, but then he didn't want to dissolve his relationships with SWAPO, and he didn't want to also tag on to that. He didn't want to use that as also an anchor point, because technically he was a SWAPO member. He should have been able to run as an independent candidate and still stay a SWAPO member. But looking back on it now, okay, but spoiler alert, Itula lost towards the end, and he was a bit of a sore loser about it. But looking back on it now, as I think about it now, I realize that even if he had won, even if Itula had become, president of Namibia, sorry, if Itula had become president of Namibia, what we would have gotten was a cabinet full of people. If he had chosen people from the other parties, a cabinet full of people from different parties, that would have been the best case scenario, and that would have given him spies in his own cabinet, essentially. Because that's what he was running for. He was running for an office that required you to have allies. But while he was running for the presidency, he said, I don't need any allies. And I felt like that was his biggest mistake. Because obviously SWAPO was not going to take him back after what he did. So for me, what he should have done in the beginning was run as an independent candidate, but try and get one of the other parties to back him, because they were not definitely going to make a dent in Hage Gengob's votes. But Itula was the man to beat, honestly, and he spoke the truth. He spoke things that made us feel like this is what SWAPO should have been like. And this gets me to my musings now. This is one thing that I've thought about and procrastinated on, and not procrastinated rather, but more like planned out, like mentally and all that. I was wondering what would happen if I was president. What would I do with that kind of power? And the more I understood politics, the more I wondered, is it really that easy, Because to me, as a man, as an ordinary citizen, I look around, I look at what the parties do, I look at what the government does, and I think they could do so much better. It could be so much easier for them to just affect change. It'd be so much easier for them to fucking eradicate poverty. You don't need to create a ministry for it. Just get everybody a house, get everybody access to water, get everybody access to electricity, and get everybody access to education and Wi-Fi. Oh, I must stress the importance of Wi-Fi. And once they have access to all these things, you should eradicate poverty. So to me, as I was looking at our governments do this, as I look at our governments do such things, fail at eradicating poverty, fail at eradicating communicable diseases like hepatitis or whatever, I personally, I thought I could do a better job. I mean, how hard is it to just forego your salary for a month and build 5 or 6 houses in one go? How hard is it to calculate how much money you would need to electrify the entire informal settlement? How hard would it be? how hard would it be to cut back on your flights to other countries for diplomatic missions and all that? You know, how hard would it be to force, not force rather, but rather endorse private companies? You know, government endorsed private companies, government endorsed private businesses to be exact. You know, that produce things locally for our people. You could have clothes being produced, you could have food being made, you could have so much things being manufactured in our country for our people, and have us be self-sufficient. And all it would take is for us to just rearrange a few things, you know, cut back on certain expenses, stop buying new cars, stop having you know, bonuses and benefits and S&T. Like, what is that? So the way I envisioned being a president, right? Honestly, the way I thought about it was, you get into office and you just do your business. You look at poverty, you settle it right there. You find out how much it would cost to do what you need to do, how much it would cost to fix everything, and you move on. You look at the housing problem, you know, how much would it cost? But honestly, it all goes back to the same problem. If you solve poverty, if you handle all those few things that I mentioned there, electricity, water, education, Wi-Fi, access to food, then everything else should fall in place. You know, endorsing the private businesses to make their own food and whatnot. Because I always thought how amazing it is that the US can do stuff like create t-shirts and have their cities on them, New York, Boston, or whatever, and they sell it to the rest of the world, and we buy it like it's freaking gold. We could do the same thing. You could have a Rundu, Windhoek, whatever t-shirts and whatnot. So I think sport would also be a big thing. If we also had a way to just maximize the economy we have here, the country would be prosperous. So these things are building new buildings and creating new highways and whatever. I feel like these are secondary things, you know, tourist attractions and whatnot. What about the tourists you have in Namibia now? Why not make it easier for people in the country to tour their own places? And I feel like the market is designed for other people to come here and make us better. The market is designed for foreigners to come here and improve our economy. And it's quite sad. But as I say this, I have no political training, I have no political understanding. So even when I was making the plans, I did not think about it as a politician. I thought about it as a person. I thought about it as somebody who could use the power much better, use the money much better. I feel like money is wasted on people who just want to buy cars, you know, fancy cars and big houses. Don't get me wrong, all those things are nice, but you could do so much more, honestly, you know. So if I was king for a day, presidency would not be enough. If I was the king, the emperor, the way I thought about it in the beginning was I would come to power as some sort of military leader, you know, military coup type of shit. And we'd, as Namibia, we would conquer the entire Southern Africa, starting with Botswana, because I see them as a slightly weak link, and then we'd move on to South Africa, the big balls, the big dogs, and then eventually Nigeria and the rest would just fall in place. They'll be like, guys, we cannot fight this, let's just fall in. Or we'd have our third world war on our hands. Or first African World War. And okay, we're about to run out of time, so let me just make this short and quick. The reason why I thought I can do better than what we have in place now is because I'm unburdened by the idea of coalitions. I'm unburdened by the idea of helping my comrades help me, you know. I hate the idea that being president, being a politician is a popularity contest. You know, why can't we just have people serving us? These politicians are there in those offices for us. They are there to take care of our needs. And they are us as well. That's one thing they or we tend to forget. So whatever's good for the country is good for them, it's good for us. So if they do their jobs properly, you know, eventually we should end up with a prosperous country. If they plan things out properly, with the mindset of this is a developing country, not this is you know, we are competing with the US president's car motorcade or whatever. You know, you don't need a motorcade, you don't need that many bodyguards, no one wants to kill you, you know. Okay, maybe people do want to kill you, who knows? But you should not, as a servant of the people, a public servant, a politician, your personal feelings should not get involved. When you do your job, you should do it clinically. You should do it like a machine, honestly. Because the feeling parts should not come in. You know what the expenses are. You know what the benefits are. Not the expenses and benefits, but you know what you need to achieve, and you know what you're not achieving, and you know how to get to where you need to get. Hire the right people to advise you. Better yet, have them do it as volunteers, for crying out loud. Because if you are already wealthy, if you already have amassed enough wealth, you don't need that salary. Do your job simply for the sake of doing it, simply for the sake of making a better country. Because the moment your country is better, the better your country gets, the more people in the future will prosper, the more your children, your grandchildren will prosper. So I guess this is sort of like a message to a politician. I know you have to be bureaucratic, my goodness, bureaucracy, so bureaucratic. I know you have to talk with people, you have to make relationships and make friends. I know you have to appease your friends and make sure you don't make them enemies. I know you have to because being a politician requires a lot of being the nice guy, being the relatable guy, being the person who everybody likes, but especially like your comrades and whatnot. So one person cannot enact this kind of change. It would have to come from the bottom up. And honestly, that's what I thought Itula represented in the beginning. I thought he would represent a change in Namibia's politics, a change in the way we sort of just deal with our leaders and politicians, how we hold them accountable for what they do. And so if I was emperor, president, or whatever, I would have to enact changes that would help us get to that point, get to a point where we have a proper democracy, a functional democracy. We'd have people be educated in what voting actually means. People be educated in what not voting means. People have to be educated in what happens after you voted, because it's not just the election. After the election, you have the power to go to your elected officials and tell them, look, you're not doing the job the way I expected it. Can you change something? Can you do something different? There should be a feedback loop. They should know that we're watching them, and we should know that we're allowed to watch them and correct them where they're going wrong. So as emperor or whatever, I would want these things imported into the school system. Teach people how to have pride in being, in this case, being a Namibian. And I'm not talking about fascism or whatever, but just some sense of patriotism. Some sense of duty as well. As a legal Namibian citizen, you should feel like you have the power to change everything, and you should have control of what you can change, honestly. But you should also know that you carry a heavy weight with that power to vote. Yeah, I think I've rambled on for long enough, but this is election season, so guys, go out there and educate yourself about who you're voting for. Go out there and educate yourself about who you might want to vote for and who you might not want to vote for. Know what power you have, honestly. So if I was emperor for a day, I'd want to be a dictator. Like I said, emperor, I'd have to have full control of everything. I'd have to snap my fingers and put programs into place immediately, simply because I fucking said so, But that's a story for another day. I guess that's it. Peace, guys.